Hi friends, and welcome back to Storytime with Miss Stevenson. Today we are continuing Babe the Gallant Pig, and we are on chapter 11. Chapter 11 is called Today is the Day. On the opposite side of the valley, the trees and houses and haystacks stood out clearly against the background in that three-dimensional way that means rain is coming later. Farmer Hoggett came out and sniffed the air and looked around. Then he went inside again to fetch his waterproof clothing. Fly knew, the moment she set eyes on the boss, that this was the day. Dogs have lived so long with humans that they know what's going to happen, sometimes even before their owners do. She woke Babe. "Today," she said. "Today what, Mom?" said Babe sleepily. "Today is the day of the Grand Challenge Sheepdog Trials," said Fly proudly, "which you, dear," she added in a confident voice, "are going to win." With a bit of luck, she thought, and tenderly she licked the end of his snout. She looked critically at the rest of him, anxious as any mother that her child should look right if he is to appear in public. "Oh, Babe," she said, "your coat's an awful mess. What have you been doing with yourself? You look as though you've been wallowing around in the duck pond." "Yes," said Babe. "You mean you have?" "Yes, Mum," said Babe. Fly was on the point of saying what puppies don't do such things when she remembered that he was, after all, a pig. "Well, I don't know about large white," she said. "You've certainly grown enormous, but it's anyone's guess what color you are under all of that muck. Whatever is there to be done with this?" Immediately, her question was answered. "Come, Pig," said Hoggett's voice from the yard, and when they came out of the stables, there stood the farmer with a hose pipe and scrubbing brush and pails of soapy water. Half an hour later, when a beautifully clean, shining Babe stood happily dripping while Hoggett brushed out the tassel of his tight curled tail till it looked fine as candy floss, Mrs. Hoggett stuck her head out of the kitchen window. "Breakfast is ready," she called. "But what in the world are you doing with that pig? Taking him out to the show or something? I thought you was going to drive up and watch the trials today. Anybody think you were going to be entering them in? Look what you've done up. Only he wouldn't be a sheepdog, be a sheep pig, wouldn't he? Who'd ever heard of such a silly thing? I must be silly, though. It's you that's really silly, carrying him about in the poor old Land Rover the size he is now. The bottom will fall right out of that car. I should wonder, you ain't surely gonna drive all the way with him in the back just so he can watch the trials." "Nope," said Farmer Hoggett. Mrs. Hoggett considered this answer for a moment, with her mouth open, while raising and lowering her eyebrows, shaking her head, and drumming on the windowsill with her fingertips. Then she closed her mouth and the window. After breakfast, she came out to see them off. Fly was sitting in the passenger seat. Babe was comfortable in a thick bed of clean straw in the back, where he now took up the entire space. Mrs. Hoggett walked around the Land Rover, giving out farewell pats. "Good boy," she said to Babe, "and good girl," to Fly, and to Hoggett, "Goodbye, you have got your sandwiches, and you've got your thermos of coffee, and your raincoat. Looks as though it might rain today. Thought I felt a spot right now, though I suppose it might be different when seeing that you're going to be so far away. That reminds me, have you got enough gas and enough money to get there? Drive carefully, okay? I'll see you later." 2:00, said Hoggett, and before his wife had time to say anything, added, "On the telly, live. Then he put the Land Rover in gear and he drove away. When Mrs. Hoggett switched on the television at 2 o'clock, the first thing in the picture that she noticed was that it was raining very hard. She dashed outside to bring her washing in and saw that the sun was shining and remembered it wasn't wash day anyway, and came back to find the cameras showing the layout of the course. First, there was a shot of a huge pillar of stone, the height of a man, standing upright in the ground. "Here," said the voice of the commentator, "is where each handler will stand, and from here each dog will start his outrun. He can go left or right to get into position behind his sheep. Today, each dog will have 10 sheep to work. They will be grouped near that distant point called the holding post." All the time, the cameras followed his explanations. "And then he must fetch his sheep through the fetch gates, all the way back to the handler's post and round it. Then the dog drives the sheep away to the left as we look at it, through the drive-away gates, turns them right again and straight across the line of his fetch, through the cross-drive gates and right again to the shedding ring. And when he's shed the sheep and collected them all, then finally he must pen them there." "Ugh, that's a lot of things they have to do," said Mrs. Hoggett, turning the sound off. "Some folks never know when to stop explaining things. Keeping on and on about the silly gates. Why don't just show us a picture of the spectators? Might get a glimpse of Hoggett and Fly. You never know. Though not the pig. I hope he's surely in the car still. Can't see why he wanted to take that pig along with him anyway." And she stumped off into the kitchen, shaking her head. On the silent screen, the first handler walked out and took up his position behind the great big stone, his dog standing by him, tense and eager in the pouring rain. And we are going to stop right there for today. We have one chapter left to read together. Chapter 12 will be called That'll Do, and we will continue that in our next video. Thank you again so much for joining me. This is such a special part of my day to be able to share this story with you. I hope that you've had a wonderful day today. I hope that you're happy. I hope that you're healthy, and I will see you again very, very soon.